Hello, world.
Oh my goodness! Well, welcome, Facebook family. We're back in the backyard. The fires in Napa have calmed down enough that the air is of moderate quality, so we're thrilled to be back outside. We're in that Indian summer, cool early in the morning and warm in the afternoon. It's 88 degrees here now, so it's kind of perfect in the shade.
Very nice. I had to buy a jacket this morning.
What? Oh no, not that.
I don't have a light jacket. I go from like heavy, winter coat to a denim that I shouldn't wear because of its color. My niece tells me to a hoodie. So I had to get something kind of adult.
In between, what? I'm totally sold on the Patagonia puffy jacket. Yeah, it's perfect weight for any time, and it keeps you super warm or cool enough. Yeah. So, well, welcome everybody to Pricked Live, and I'm Kim Brown Sims.
Hi, I'm Kevin Bowen. Didn't recognize my cue.
Come on, Kevin, you should be a pro at this now. So we tell everybody all the time, Kevin and I have known each other since we were 8 years old. You know how we really got to be great friends is that my last name is Brown and his last name is
Bowen.
And so we were always next to each other in line. And that's how we became such good friends. And in high school, we had to do the Romeo and Juliet soliloquy. Was it a soliloquy? What did they call that? I don't think it was a soliloquy because then that's individual, isn't it? Yeah.
It's scene, I guess.
I don't know. It was a scene. He was my Romeo and, I was his Juliet. And yeah, we've been friends for, well before then and ever since then. Now it's too many years to mention, but we're really happy to have you and the whole have you here with us today. And the whole point of Pricked is to talk about, those things that kind of sting you, bite you, and ultimately those things that hurl you forward. You use it as motivation, you use it as the step to getting to a better place. So with that, we've got two phenomenal guests today. We're super thrilled to have these guys on board. I have these fancy bios, so I'm going to read them because, if you don't have your bio in front of you, I mean, what's the point? You got to read the bio if you've got it written, right?
Absolutely.
I will. Okay. I'm going to do that then. Well, let's start with Nick Levenberg. Nick is my business partner in crime when it comes to all things consulting. Here's his short bio. Nick Levenberg is an experienced leader in IT and software development, business strategy, and startup fundraising and operations. Nick has always focused on external consulting and has worked intimately with hundreds of businesses. He's built 2 strategic consulting practices, led long-term engagements with Fortune 500 clients in supply chain and transportation, analyzed over 100 business plans, and written more than he cares to admit. When not trying to solve big problems with leading firms, Nick loves sourcing great ingredients, cooking while watching PBS cooking shows, music, tennis, running, golf, and pool. We need that crowd cheer sound thing in the background, I think. Wait, whoa! Okay, well, all right, let's move on. Yeah, woohoo! All right, and then that's Nick Levenberg, okay? And then, all right, wait, Tim, say your last name for me so I say it right.
Angelillo, which means little angel in Italian. That's how it translates. Most people have a problem with that. Like, you little angel? Never. I'm like, I'm not that bad. Just because I work in the alcohol industry. Come on now. I'm not that bad. So Tim Angelillo, I'm your bartender for the evening.
That's right. So here, I have a bio for you too. I'm reading it. Do you know we got one? We got one on you. Are you ready? Let's hope it's true. I don't know. Nick gave it to me, so.
Half.
So it says, Tim's love of experience marketing began at Sports Illustrated in the late 90s. Uh-oh, he's already aging you.
Mm-hmm. Old. Can't hide the gray. Just earned it.
You and me both. And me both.
Yeah.
Well, with an opportunity to be part of the founding experiential marketing team at SI, Tim helped develop and monetize the SI swimsuit franchise beyond print, as well as helped create the House of Heisman, which still runs today with Nissan and ESPN. That's impressive, dude. After marrying experiential marketing with the digital distribution at Yahoo and Y!Sports, Tim had the opportunity to join the leadership team of legendary advertising agencies R&R Partners, where the line "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas" was born. Was that yours?
That's a funny story we can get into. It was a
Ooh.
big pricked moment for tourism industry in Las Vegas, and we had to figure out how, when gaming, which is the way the industry refers to gambling, became deregulated, people stopped flying to Vegas. They went to the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, those kind of places. We had to kind of reinvent Vegas because we had 155,000 hotel rooms a night to fill. And so it was a focus group out of Minnesota, two middle-aged, happily married, career business leaders. And we asked them if they had been to Vegas, and they said, "You're not going to tell anybody, are you?" And we said, "That's why you signed a non-disclosure agreement, because we're going to tell you some things and you're going to tell us some things." And at the very end, after an hour of them explaining why they go to Vegas and don't tell their husbands, but don't do anything that society would view as wrong, the lady at the end, one of the duos, one of the focus group participants, said, "You're not going to tell anybody, are you?" And that's the funny part about one of the most famous lines in advertising is we didn't write half of it. And it took us smart advertising people, it took us 3 months to come up with the other half. She said, "What happened
I absolutely
here?"
love that.
Right? And it took us 3 months to come up with the "stay here" part. So inspiration comes from all places.
Yes, it does. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that story. That is fascinating. I'm going to finish the end of your bio because there's more.
Oh, that's because I'm old.
Experience.
You're mature like a fine wine. We're in Napa, remember?
Yeah.
And you're in the alcohol business. All right. It says the introduction of entertainment and marketing and migration through the three-tiered system of the alcohol industry led to Tim's desire to solve the problem of how the 1933 alcohol distribution laws meet the 21st century consumer with sourced craft cocktails. Well, that's pretty fancy. Did you write that?
I did not. I'm going to definitely be talking to our marketing department tomorrow about who did. They're getting a raise.
I think it's pretty phenomenal. But we are so thrilled to have you both here today, and it's really incredible, Tim, what you have done with Source Craft Cocktails. I mean, talk about a major, pivot in light of the pandemic, where, actually, I'll just let you tell the story, but tell us what the original intent of Source Craft Cocktails was, and then how you pivoted, and what that overarching prick was, that huge hurdle that you had to overcome in order to be successful.
Yeah, thank you again for having Nick and I. We really appreciate it. It's wonderful to be on the show, and I'm glad you guys are safe out there. I know it's been a rough ride. It's been a rough ride for everybody. At Sourced, the sort of initial prick that we were trying to solve was alcohol distribution. So when you think about the alcohol industry, it's a $120 billion a year marketplace in the US, and it's recession proof, right? Like in the middle of 2020, what's the one thing we're all still doing more of? We're enjoying some more wine. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So for 11 economic declines, going all the way back to the Great Depression, the alcohol industry has always increased. And so when you look at the alcohol industry, you've got a huge marketplace, 120 billion a year. It is quite literally recession proof. It never declines. But yet you have a regulatory environment that is the exact same as December 5th, 1933. And it's this very informal document. It's the 21st Amendment to the US Constitution that built what is called the three-tiered system, which is in Napa, you guys have tier one, which are the brands. They make the wine. They're able to legally do two things. They can make the wine and they can market it. They have to sell it to a distributor, tier two, who has to sell it to a retailer, which means that there's a huge part of the marketplace not being served. And that's all of our unlicensed doors. So when you think about the retailer in the alcohol space, there are three kinds of doorknobs. And for you guys at home, I want you to physically look at the doorknob in the room that you're sitting in. So I've looked at mine. So
Okay.
doorknob number one is called on-premise. It's a bar or a restaurant or a hotel. They can sell you the glass of wine on the premises, but you can't walk out the front door with it. It's not a moral dilemma for the bar owner, right? She wants you to have a good time. It's because she doesn't have a license, a permit to allow you to drink the alcohol that she has sold you and served you outside of its building. Doorknob number 2 is called off premise. And that doorknob is a liquor store, or in California, a grocery store, right? You can buy the bottle of wine, but there's a big sign on the front door in red that says you must drink the alcohol off the premises, right? Because they don't have a permit for you to drink it. You can't just take the corkscrew and start slugging it in. You might feel like that some days, but can't actually legally do it, right? Depends on what kind of day you had today, right? Which leads you to doorknob number 3. It's the doorknob that we just looked at together. That doorknob is what we call non-premise, meaning it's not a liquor store and it's not a bar, which means the $120 billion monster that is the alcohol industry cannot legally deliver the bottle to that doorknob because the distributor, tier 2, cannot drop it off to an unlicensed door, right? And so we took a $120 billion marketplace that's recession-proof, that had not innovated its distribution in almost 90 years, and we figured out a way to build a compliant solution to deliver a full-blown craft cocktail to what we call non-premise. So give me a guess, and we're going to take the Bay Area, right? We're going to take, I know people think we're crazy because we deliver all the way down the peninsula and the East Bay and San Francisco downtown. They're like, wow. I'm like, yeah, well, we're headquartered in Austin. So like we drive down to San Antonio, it's 80 miles away. We don't think anything of it. So it's all frame of reference, right? So give me by percentage, what percentage in the whole Bay Area do you think are a bar or a liquor store versus every other doorknob? East Bay, Peninsula, downtown, the high rises. Give me a percentage.
I'll say 43 bar restaurant and the 67 or 57 I can't do math today.
When you think about the whole, this is the amazing part, right? When you think about, if you count every single bar and liquor store, right, versus every other doorknob in the Bay Area, 2%. Only 2% of doorknobs are a bar or a liquor store versus every other doorknob, which means 98% of doorknobs in America are not available to the $120 billion a year recession-proof monster, right?
My mouth is hanging open.
And that's what we saw.
Households.
Yeah, that's what I know. He's talking about households, but I thought there are so many bars and restaurants throughout the Bay Area. I mean, and even in Napa, but then again, when you start thinking about, the number of houses compared to, but still 2 to 98?
98%. And that's what we made accessible and that was the first big prick, right? Is we had to figure out how to make it legally compliant through our work with off-premise retailers to be able to legally deliver the sealed bottle of alcohol from your phone to your door. Because all of us have one of these, right? Whether it's an Android or an iOS is irrelevant. What it
or a flip phone.
What it is it's a remote control to life, right? It gets you a car, Uber. It gets you a house, Airbnb. It gets my wife her wardrobe, Rent the Runway, right? It gets
Instacart.
Yeah, Instacart, Amazon. It gets you everything, but yet it couldn't get you a cocktail because of the regulatory environment. And that was the first big solve, right? Was we had to figure out how to make it legally compliant to be able to do so. Once we did that and we started delivering cocktail experiences into unlicensed doors, corporations that were entertaining their employees, all of a sudden we fast forward 5 years and we've built a 100+% year-over-year growth business, and then the pandemic hits, right? And remote work hits, and shelter-in-place hits, and we're like, wow, we have 13,000 enterprise clients, and none of them are going to the door that we've been serving for the last 5 years. Like, Houston, yikes. We have a problem, right?
I'm Austin.
Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, like, did you say $8.5 million just vaporized in 72 hours? Because it sounds like, CFO, that's what you said to me. I'm paying attention now. And so for us, what we did is we had to pivot, right? And if you ask, I'm blessed. I have 3 small children. I have a 10-year-old, RJ, an 8-year-old Cooper, and then just like my whole world is my daughter, Grace, right? I say she's 5, and she goes, "No, Daddy, I'm 5.5." I'm like, "Oh, Daddy's in trouble when you're 15. Daddy's in
You're
so
in
much trouble, right?"
trouble.
Yeah, so much trouble. So I ask all 3 of my children, I'll look at them and I'll say, "What do whiners get?" And they go, "Nothing, Daddy, nothing. Nuttin, nothing." Right? And that's how we thought about the business challenge, which was catastrophic for our business, right? We just lost 2/3 of the revenue, like poof, overnight, because there were no people gathering in the doors to which we were servicing. And so we sat down and thought, hey, we can either whine about it, right? Or with great challenge leads to great opportunity. And we shifted the business for 2 reasons. One, because we had to innovate or die with the business. So we shifted it to delivering it to consumers' homes. And 2, when you think about our business, the largest part of our workforce is bartenders, right? We sent licensed bartenders into Google's offices and Facebook's offices, and Salesforce offices and Dropbox offices and Bank of America's offices, anywhere that they were entertaining their employees or their customers. We were legally bringing the cocktail experience and insuring everybody through liquor liability insurance. And so we had thousands of independent contractors who were bartenders who not only lost their opportunity to work for Source, they lost their opportunity to work, period, because the state
Bars were
governors closed their place of employment. Right? It wasn't like, hey, they wanted unemployment insurance or they were being lazy. They literally couldn't go to work and practice the craft that they honed for years. And so for us, it was really a 2-part solution. Like we had to innovate how to build that revenue back and how to get back to triple-digit growth. And we had to find a way to keep a roof over these people's heads, right? And for us, what's amazing is when you fast forward 6 months, right? We went from growing at 110% to growing at 792%. And we've paid out over $500,000 in direct shift fees to bartenders that we pay on a daily basis. If you drive those cocktail kits, which is how we're employing them, to that consumer's front door, we pay you the next morning. We're paying every single day because they need the money, right? And they've earned it. They're still practicing their craft. They're still delivering you a craft cocktail experience, albeit in a very 21st century phone to door manner. And so for us, it was a series of really difficult pricks that we didn't panic, and we solved them one at a time. And we were really blessed to have really smart people like Nick help us figure out how to change the technology side of our tech stack. Because when you go from you're delivering an enterprise account, 2,000 cocktails to one door, and then you need to serve that same enterprise account by delivering 2,000 cocktail kits to all their employees' doors, right? One door to 2,000 doors. That's a really different tech problem. And we were really fortunate to have Nick come in and help us think through, like, how are you going to change it? And oh, by the way, we went from scaling at 110 to almost 800. We need to change it right now. So that's where Nick came in and helped us. So I'd love to answer any questions you guys have about kind of our business or how the adversity that we faced and were able to overcome, or can have Nick share a little bit about how he thought about the technology piece to enable us to grow that fast.
Absolutely. We're going to get to Nick. The question that I have for you is, are you using those then bartenders as your independent contractors, right? Like what we talked about. So they're doing the same thing as DoorDash and Uber and Instacart, and right. So they're able to receive, because they are bartenders, they're able to receive the cocktail and then they can deliver them to the consumer. Is that how you got around that?
Totally. Because they legally can deliver, like they legally can serve alcohol. They're licensed by the state to serve alcohol.
Hand it over.
Yeah, they're just serving it in a 21st century pandemic manner. Right.
So that's crazy. Okay, so say I have an event, and Nick, if you're the magic, you're the technology magic behind this, chime in. So, for instance, I'm the president of the California Association of Healthcare Leaders. We had a little bit of this conversation, and I've got 200 people who are going to attend an event, and they're all paying an additional fee so that they can receive a cocktail to their front door. You can do a cocktail education session, and then we go into education around healthcare leadership. one of your bartenders or multiple bartenders in a geographic area or even a widespread geographic area are delivering to each of these individuals that we identify?
Exactly right. We call them source socials. So it's what makes Groundhog's Day different, right? We're all living through that movie. Never made so much sense until 2020, right? The alarm
What are you
clock goes
talking
off.
about? It's still March.
Yeah, I know. Well, my wife likes to say my kids have been on a 9-month spring break, right? Because last time I went to real school was spring break last year. I'm like, last school year. I'm like, oh my Lord.
Uh-huh.
No wonder why we're all drinking so much at home. So,
Yeah.
so long story short, the way it works is you're the host of a virtual event, right? You want to create, here's the part we miss as human beings. We miss the camaraderie.
Yeah.
If you think about when cheers, right? And here's the thing about that cheers is when somebody says, let's take a shot, we all take the same one because what we're looking for is the shared experience, right? And so when you think about a virtual happy hour that people have been trying to create on the internet, part of the problem is everybody's doing something different and it almost reinforces the remoteness. Like somebody has wine and somebody has whiskey and somebody has beer and somebody has nothing because they didn't have time to go to the store. And it's like, it just falls a little flat. And so what we do is we learn about what is the education, what are we virtually gathering around. We build you a custom menu that kind of speaks to that. We then deliver them to all of your attendees' homes through that out-of-work bartender. We make all of the ingredients that are not alcohol fresh in a commercial kitchen in each of our 11 cities. And then we deliver them by hand, where each mixologist is taking anywhere from 10 to 15 kits to those attendees' homes. We do them on the day of the actual conference, and then we're the networking section, right? Like at the very end, everybody joins. We all learn how to make that cocktail. We learn the history of that cocktail. We might take you through a virtual distillery tour of the spirit that is actually in that cocktail through our partnerships with the alcohol companies, where you're getting to see the Bullet Bourbon Distillery, or you're getting to see Don Julio's distillery down in Mexico, and you're physically, virtually experiencing something that you would have had to fly to Tennessee or Mexico to go do. And it just adds that shared nature, and it adds something different that didn't happen yesterday, like the day before, like the day before that, and so on and so forth, all the way back to March 15th.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's absolutely amazing. So I'm going to pipe up and say Kevin's food and beverage manager at one of the most famous hotels here in Napa Valley, Bardessono, and he's been in this same hospitality industry, food and beverage, for the last 30 years. So you guys should talk. But Nick, I want to talk to you about the technology aspect of it. Like, how did you make this happen? I mean, it had to be this amazing task of
2 sticks and a lot of fire.
But started out, I came into it, and Tim had a great vision already together for what he wanted, and he and his team had worked up, had gone through some user research. They'd figured out what they needed, and in great detail, they'd worked up full color mock-ups of what they wanted it to look like.
Right.
So coming into that, this was fantastic. It was a really hard problem to solve because they, from a system standpoint, they're doing rapid last mile delivery based on orders that came in hours ago, and before the orders go out, they're doing a manufacturing process. So it's like they're two different companies in a sense. Most companies that manufacture don't turn things around that fast.
Right.
What Nick said in a really nice way is, "I'm crazy." That's what he said. He said, "That guy's nuts." I'm
Well,
like,
you're in
yes.
great company then.
Yeah, totally. I want one problem in enough. I want 2. Now I'm good. Yeah.
Or maybe more. And listen, when we do a pricked, conference, then we have to have prickly pear margaritas because it's only apropos.
Done deal. We would love to do it.
That's great.
Oh.
And the problem that that Tim was primarily concerned with solving was the same kind of problem that we've been talking about here. It was that he wanted to enable his workforce, the bartenders, to do their jobs better, to be more efficient. There were some other things relating to letting the customers know that things were happening, letting the sales force know that things were happening. But fundamentally, the project was about enabling the workforce and giving them meeting them where they were, and giving them the
Mm-hmm.
information they needed to do their jobs, and giving it to them on their phones in a way that that was convenient and flexible for them. So it was so starting out, we knew that those were the goals. It was to give the bartenders the ability to see when their shifts were, what drinks they were making, how much they were going to get paid, when they were going to get paid, how much they had been paid, uh, right? All those kinds of very um, down in the weeds sort of operational things. But so this was just a great way to approach an IT project, since Tim had come from doing software development in the past, and had started out with this uh, full design sprint. We were able to then go through and do a more detailed audit that didn't take very long because of the design sprint, and ultimately build full requirements and send it out for bid like we were a company of 100 times our size,
Mm-hmm.
which it
Well,
was
you are
true.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. With,
792, as a matter of fact.
yeah. The reality of it though, and we get asked this a lot, in a lot of different contexts. Like, are you guys a consumer packaged goods company, or are you a tech company? I mean, I can't tell you how many times, hundreds and hundreds of times over the last 5 years. And the reality is, we view ourselves as we're a consumer experience company. Like, we deliver a physical product, right? And that physical product, and this is the part I love, is our job is to bring you joy. That's what we do, right? And that joy comes in the form of a great cocktail experience. But the reality is, without, and Nick's used this word a couple of times, which is where he and I have always really seen eye to eye of what we were looking to build and what we needed to build, was enablement, right? Like, the technology had to enable the consumer experience business to grow and grow really fast and grow in a way that we were creating a good experience for the consumer and for the people that were helping us be of service, right? Whether that was our operations team or our marketing team or our sales team or our finance team or mixology team, right? Like, if without the enablement of the tech stack that Nick helped us build, we wouldn't have actually been able to service the demand that was sitting right in front of us.
Oh, I absolutely love this. So you guys have to, okay, you've got the marketing thing behind you, and I know Nick's got marketing as well, and you're all about the experience. You've used the word enabled. So if you're being pricked, how does that being pricked enable innovation? Or what is that one sentence, right, that combines pricked and enable? Because that's honestly exactly what we're talking about with not just you, but everybody we bring on the show, is that prick enables something, innovation, greatness, whatever. What's the word, marketing?
Yeah, and our word would be growth, right? That would be our word, is that the being pricked enabled through the technology growth, right? And what growth does is it allows us to be of service, which is what our North Star is, to more people, to more non-premise households, right? Because the reality is, people aren't comfortable going out yet, right? I'll be the first one to be like, as soon as it's safe, by all means, I'm gonna give everybody a hug. Whether I know you or not, I'm sorry, you're getting a hug, right? And I can't wait. But the reality is the consumer, whether the government allows it to be open or they don't, the consumer is not currently comfortable, which means you have to be able to service that last 1 mile, as Nick was talking about, so that you can actually deliver it all the way down to their home. And for us, it's been amazing to have the opportunity to grow with the US Open. So we took the famous tennis tournament. They have a signature cocktail called the Honeydeuce. It's been available at Arthur Ashe Stadium for 11 years. The sort of Instagram moment, if you go to the US Open, is you take that cocktail and you take a picture with your hand in the cocktail looking down into the stadium. And what ESPN wanted is they wanted to recreate that in your living room, where you were still supporting the US Open. And instead of the Arthur Ashe Stadium view, it was your living room and the television in the background. And we were able to deliver tens of thousands of those kits, not just in New York, where the tournament is played, but literally across the country. So that you could have a taste of the Open, whether you were in Miami or LA or Queens or wherever you were. We were bringing you something physical that represented that tournament. and we were bringing it all the way into your living
I absolutely love it. Like the world is now, literally the world is your oyster, right? Because there is nothing that is off limit. I mean, I don't know if you've, mastered the global market, but you know that there's a spot for that too. If it's not happening now, it's going to happen in the future. And I love the whole concept about, being, being that person who's creating that experience. Kevin and I just had this conversation about experience. Like, what is your passion? And he is all about, I want people to have a great experience. I want people to have a great time. I want to serve them so that they can be happy. And you guys are in alignment. It's just so, I'm like getting chills over the fact that we're all in this same space right here and now. Nick and I've been talking about this same kind of thing. Like, how do we capture that feeling, that sense of joy and camaraderie? And I'm with you. I can't wait to start hugging people. This guy hasn't gotten a hug from me, and this is, we've been working together really closely now for about 3 months, and it's driving me nuts. We're 6 feet apart, and I bleach everything down before he comes over. But I'm with you. So it's really about creating that experience, and how do you do that in this virtual world? And I think you've like tapped into the heart of it. I don't know, Kevin, do you have questions? We're just yapping away.
No.
Hey, Kevin, what do you love about creating experiences from your perspective? Like what's that magic where we call them love letters, right? When the client sends us an email and said, that was my wife's 40th birthday, or that, every year for 12 years, I've been to the Open and you brought the Open to my house. Like, we call them love letters internally. And that's what we live for. Like, that's literally the be all. So in Napa, where you are, tell us a little bit about why you love servicing experiences.
Sure. So I came up as a bartender, and so I get that instant gratification of seeing guests enjoying whatever it was that I created, and the additional instant gratification of the gratuity. That was
pay bills. Yeah,
exactly. That was really the start of my career in hospitality. But as I got into bigger and better, higher end establishments, and then into management, and particularly in private events, banquets, and private dining, it came to be about how effectively did we make the guest, the client dream come true. We often joke about sales, the sales department selling the dream, and we have to deliver the nightmares, and vice versa. Sorry, they sell the nightmare, we have to deliver the dream. That part of it is the challenge of overcoming. Exactly.
How big a prick was it?
Daily prick. Honestly, it's about the end of the day when the guest comes up and says, that was perfect, that was amazing, thank you so much. It's even before that. I was sharing this story recently, I think with Kim, about 30 years later, still loving weddings, hating everything about wedding except that moment when the bride walks down the aisle. When we've pulled it all together and she is walking down the aisle, walking up to her betrothed, and sorry, don't mean to be sexist about that, or
it's all good.
That is for me the payoff. It's like, okay, we're underway. This has got it. We've gotten this far. Now let's just get to the finish line. Let's serve the food and make sure that everyone leaves here happy and healthy.
Here's the thing I love about those kinds of moments, and it this is kind of how we view it at Sourced, is our most valuable resource as human beings is not money. You can acquire more money. It's physically possible. I'm not being flippant about that. It's hard, and you got to be lucky, and you need both of those things. Anybody that tells you there's no luck involved has either not done it or they have an ego problem, right? But you can actually procure more of it. You can never buy more minutes. You can't. It's not like, hey, let me get on Amazon on my phone and I'm going to order 10 more minutes. Or I'm going to go down the street to Walmart and put on the mask and I'm going to get 20 more minutes. You can't buy more. And unfortunately, if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that none of us know how many minutes we actually have.
Yes.
It's absolutely right. And the other thing that I talk about is in regards to the pandemic is that what we have discovered is that the things that are important are not things at all. They're people, they're the experiences, and they're the memories that you create or that you have that are what's allowing people to make it through this time without being able to physically come in contact.
Totally. And that moment,
Relationships.
that moment that Kevin is talking about serving somebody's wedding, right? Like that moment of walking down the aisle and saying, I do, right? That moment and the memory of it is what will carry that couple through a lifetime of great happiness and very significant challenges, right?
Yes.
Because there is an equal amount of both, right? And that's
Absolutely.
okay. That's life. But it's that one moment of like, I walked down and I said that commitment to you, and I meant it with everything in my body, and I remember it. And all the people that were with me, either virtually or physically in the room, remember and were witness to me doing it. And that's the part we love about hospitality too, is that you get to enable that memory. And it's the memories that become a legacy. It's not the money. No one remembers what car you drove. No one really remembers even the dress. I'm so sorry. My wife would
It's so
kill me
true.
if she said that. It's still in a closet somewhere. It'll come out when my daughter is 35 because she's not allowed to go on a date until she's 34. But
There's no point in being married anymore.
yeah, but the reality is like it's those memories are your legacy, right? And that's the part that we love, because if time's your most valuable resource and you can't buy more of it and you don't know how much you have, you better optimize every minute of creating something memorable and awesome, right? Whether that's
right.
what you do in your career, it's what you do with your family, it's what you do with your friends, it's what you do with strangers by being polite and pleasant with each other, right? Like those are the things that are important in life, and those are the things that you leave. Because again, no one really cared what the car was or what the house was or those are things. They come, they go, but the memory is what's going to stay forever. And that and where alcohol plays a very small part of that in most cultures around the world, and this is my favorite part, is that when people walk in to your bar, right, or they walk into your birthday party, right, the first question they ask is, where's the bar? They have a mild amount of social anxiety, right? What's going on in their head is like, am I early? Am I late? Do I look okay on Zoom? Is this damn microphone working? Like whatever the case may be, right? And so they physically go get a drink first, right? And that's where we love serving them a proper cocktail in an unexpected and unforgettable way, right? And that says tonight, like, look what's in my hand. The first thing I got in my hand was cool. There's a bunch of other cool things here, right? And then they go off and explore the rest of the evening.
It is so very true. And you're absolutely right about those memories, because what I always say is that the memories make up the stories that write the chapters of your book of life, right? And that's what is going to be, like you say, your legacy, your family, your kids, your grandkids, your friends. That's what they will talk about in the time that they have left, are those stories. Those memories.
It's amazing. My oldest boy, who's 10, my RJ, he, good thing that came out of 2020. They're not a lot, so you got to really look for them and hold on to them, right? He now has a Chromebook because he's taking class virtually, and he has made a presentation about his favorite place to go that he is giving to the family this weekend. He's presenting his presentation about going to a ranch in West Texas where we have some family land. And what he remembers about it is he remembers Grandma Sally and how she wanted to get the ranch and leave it for the family, right? And it was the whole presentation is about the story of her trading her Model T Ford in 1932 for a West Texas ranch, and how that is his happy place where he makes memories fishing, or sorry for the Californians, hunting, because I'm We're in Texas, so sorry. Not my thing.
That's all right.
I'm
You
married
do what
into
you
it.
need to do. I'm vegetarian, so.
Yeah. I don't get it. I'm from California, so I'm like, hey, that's, you'll go with your grandfather for that. That's not daddy's responsibility. I'm gonna catch the fish and put it back and release it because the fishy needs life and to swim. They're like, oh my God. But it's that memory of, what did someone contribute and the legacy that they left, and the fact that she wanted to do it and was willing to literally walk as opposed to ride in a car.
Uh-huh.
Right. And when you
Yeah.
when you look at the financial implications, you're like, well, the 2,000 acres of land is worth a lot more than Model T Ford is 100 years
Well,
later.
it depends. It
Yeah.
depends because one man's garbage is another man's treasure. So,
Totally.
I just recently put this story out about your, make sure you know your worth, right? This dad gives his daughter a car and says, go to the used car lot and ask them how much it's worth. And the used car lot says it's worth $1,000. And then he said, go to the pawn shop and ask them what it's worth there. And the pawn shop said, I'll give you $100 for it. He said, go to this antique car lot, this antique car show club, and asked them what it's worth. And she came back, she said, they wanted to give me $100,000 because it's this rare, blah, 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 blah car. Right. And so the idea is go to where you're valued, go to where people understand what your worth is, because that's where you belong. And so it's exactly in alignment with what you're talking about. That Model T Ford, was worth more to that whomever that sold her that land,
Right.
and that land was meant more to her than the convenience of
Yeah,
that model.
the same family has the 4,000 acres still across the creek, so they held on to a little bit of it.
Yeah, they had a little to spare.
There ain't a lot out in West Texas, That's why I love going to the ranch, because the cell phone stops working 30 minutes from the front door. We call it 1 hour. 1 hour of important. You got to drive 30 minutes out to the main road to make the phone call and 30 minutes back. So it's like, if it ain't 1 hour important, we'll be available when we come back into civilization,
And that's a beautiful concept. We all should be living by that. How important is it?
I do want to share a couple of comments we got from Drew Lane.
Yeah, Drew's my bud. Yep.
Drew says, my experience, in quotation marks, is more long haul. He also says, creating a team, a culture, an environment of mentoring, fostering, and promoting professional development.
Yeah. So Drew is a team member of mine that he and I worked together at the Sleep Train Arena when we opened the alternate care facility, or the field hospital for COVID patients. We were on assignment together. And, there are just certain people, when you talk about experiences, there are just certain people that you come together with and you just know you're going to be friends for life. And he was one of those people for me. And so, he really looks at the experience of no matter what you do, as where is that commonality and where's that common bond, because that again creates the experience, creates the story, writes the chapters of the book of your life. And it really is about coming together and creating a culture of positivity and trust.
I think one thing Drew's highlighted on is it's also really important to create a good experience inside the company.
Yes.
So I had the opportunity to visit with a really talented individual in New York right before we all hopped on here, who's considering joining our journey. And it was, I'm kind of the end of the line, right? He's talked to who would be his boss, and he talked to who would be his peer, and he talked to who would be his ops person, and he would be an account executive, which means he would service our enterprise clients in New York. And of the 60 minutes that we visited, we spent about 58 and a half minutes talking about the culture of the company, right? Mm-hmm. Because we wanted him to understand that if you're going to join this journey, our North Star is to be of service. And the way that we do it is through what we call the 3 T's: trust, transparency, tenacity. Right? We trust that you're not going to join this journey if you don't want to be of service to someone else. If you need a ticker tape parade because you closed the deal, this is not the place for you. Because the ticker tape parade will come, but it's after the client has had a great experience and we have succeeded in helping create the memory. Right? We're going to be
and it's a shared, right?
Totally. We'll be transparent, what worked, what didn't work. And then the tenacity is what we refer to as the want to, right? Here's our filter. Elon Musk put a Tesla into outer space. He put a cardboard cutout of an astronaut. he put a video camera on the hood. He played Space Odyssey, and he got planet Earth as his backdrop. If that is possible, I'm sure we can do almost anything we want to with our little cocktail delivery business, right? It's like, are you going to be tenacious and want to get the shit done? Because I view my job as what I refer to as, I'm not really the CEO. I'm the CDO. I'm the chief doing officer, right? And I think organizations of any kind, whether it's an organization of professionals, medical professionals, it's an organization of a company, it's a religious organization, it's a friend network, whatever it is, whomever is leading, if you can't communicate your core values, be of service through 3 T's, you have no hope of everyone arriving and pulling together. And I think, Drew's talking a little bit about what you created and he helped create with the COVID facility. Without your leadership, it doesn't actually work.
It's a shared vision, and what I always say, and that kind of the core of my company, is that together we can achieve the unimaginable, right? Because if it's a single mind at the table voicing an opinion and a view, you're going to have this type of a product or this type of an experience or this type of a end result. When you have everybody at the table expressing their views and talking about their perspectives, they're looking at it from different lenses, you're going to create something that not one single person could do on their own. And to me, that is tapping into the power of the expertise of the front line. So if they're involved in how the work they do gets done, they're going to do it in a way that us as leaders could never imagine.
Absolutely. There's also us as leaders, if we can't create that environment,
vision,
and, and have people who want to carry it forward, then we plateau, right?
Yep.
The first year of Source, where I was the person doing everything. So I was the person coming up with the marketing and doing the sales and making the mixes and delivering them. We tapped out at $392,000. That would have been, which would have been a great small business for my wife and I, but we wanted to solve the problem much more broadly than just in a few neighborhoods in Austin, Texas, right? And so to be able to do that, you have to be able to communicate and you have to be able to express, like, here's what we're trying to do together. Do you want to come and be a part of that? And if you do, that's great. And the part that's awesome is to watch people do it, to your point, better than you can. And my bar is pretty low. I'm like, I got to hire smarter people than I am, which is a pretty low bar. So I'm like, perfect.
I'm the same way.
But it's awesome to watch them be enthusiastic about it. Is a really, really fun thing that I think Drew is sort of hinting at in terms of creating a community amongst coworkers. It sounds like you guys have.
It was a phenomenal experience. You bring together people under a shared vision, and also, the gel of a crisis moment, right? It's to your point of, we had to pivot. So we had to pull together and say, how do we achieve this goal? How do we overcome this prick of the pandemic? And do it in a measurable way, tongue in cheek, So there's just always this sense of, how can we accomplish this goal? And when you ask the question and then you step back and you let the experts, give their opinion, it's just phenomenal what you can achieve. So,
I have one question for you that I would be interesting. One of the things we often talk about is we don't refer to it as win or lose, meaning 50% of the things that we do every morning succeed. And 50% of the things we do every morning fail, right? And the reason we don't express them as win or lose is lose has a negative connotation. We express it as win or learn. And I'd love to get your take on organizationally as the company grows, right? Now we're going to be hundreds of people, right? How do you keep a culture where the pricks of the daily grind of the business can be viewed as a positive because it's a learning opportunity to improve, right? I'd love to get your take on that.
Is this a plant? Because this is my expertise, actually.
No, that's why I wanted your opinion on it. Like, I could use some help,
Because, so in the healthcare environment, what I've done is taken the lean theory, which is lean manufacturing, right? And it's about creating standard work. But you create an environment where you give the tools to the people who are experiencing the work, right? Who are doing the work every day. You give them the tools to say, this prick right here, this pain point, this obstacle doesn't work for us. So we're going to tell you how it should be done. And we as leaders give them the tools, the mechanism for saying, we're going to try this small test of change. And so we're going to put this on the board. And our goal is to improve it by X% over a period of 3 weeks. And here's the why. Why is this a problem? And what are we going to do about that problem? They try it for 2 or 3 weeks. Does it lead them in the right direction? Does it lead them in the wrong direction? If it leads them in the wrong direction, they ask that next why. So this is all just lean theory. So you create that standard work, but what you're doing is you're empowering them to take those little fires that leaders end up doing working on putting out every single day. And you say to them, you have the hose. You put that fire out because you know what needs to be done. And failure is not a word that's in the vocabulary. Failure, Henry Ford said, speaking of Model Ts, is just the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. So when something doesn't work, it gives you information that you use to move forward more intelligently. And so that's the culture and the mindset that you create. The other thing that's not allowed is pointing your finger at somebody else. You don't fix the blame, you fix the problem. Wayne Dwyer says, fix the problem, not the blame. So you look at what is the problem and how do we work together? It's not that other department's fault. It's our problem. And we have to come together to brainstorm on how we can move forward more efficiently to create that end result of a better experience. Because in healthcare, you're looking at the experience of both the patient and the providers.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Meaning you've got to serve both sides. I
Yes.
love the idea of we're going to not cast the blame, we're going to fix the problem. I mean, that's every organization I've ever worked in, and you were kind enough to read a long list because I'm old, right? But there's always been that wedge, right? At Sports Illustrated with sales and marketing, right? The marketing people thought us sales people just had an expense account and ego, and we didn't do anything other than take people to dinner.
Yep.
Right. And then the salespeople thought the marketing people just sat in their office and got to go home at 5 o'clock while we had to take a client out until 3 o'clock in the morning. Right. And then be back at the office at 8 a.m. like they were. Right. And so there's like this wedge in between. And it's just interesting to create the environment where, hey, there's not a you, there's a we.
It's us. Yep.
Yeah. And we have to solve the collective problem because it is our issue all the way, right? It's not just sales or just marketing or just operations or just finance. It's like, this is our problem collectively, and what are we each going to contribute? And the other thing I love doing, mainly because all the people in our management team are way smarter than I am, is I'll ask them, sounds like you do in terms of you own the hose. I'll ask them like, well, how would you suggest we solve this? And then I'll just listen and be like, yeah, that one sounds much better than what was going on in my head.
Exactly. Well, so, we say all the time in healthcare that, if you're a good clinician, I'll just speak to nursing. If you're a good nurse, then we want to put you in a charge nurse role. And when you're good as a charge nurse in helping your peers provide that good care, then we want to put you in assistant nurse manager role. But once you get into the management role where you're managing people and not taking care of the patient, people just assume that person's going to be good in leadership, but we don't give them the tools. And what I say to people who are making that transition is, you're now the leader of people. So you're the expert. You don't have to tell anybody else that you're the expert. Now your job is to let the first person who is taking care of the patient be the expert. So when they say to you, what should I do? Your first question to them is, what do you think you should do? And then you encourage them, or you give them additional suggestions, such as, have you considered X? Have you considered Y? Have you considered Z? They make the decision. Then you ask them, what are the consequences? You have choices, decisions, and consequences. What are the consequences of the decision you're about to make? Can you palate those consequences? Does it endanger the patient, or does it create a good experience, a safe experience? And, do you get the outcome you want? If the answer is yes, give it a try.
Yeah,
Give it a try.
My co-founder, this is how I always know, Kevin, that I'm in big trouble. She looks at me and she goes, Tim, help me understand. And then then it's the rest of whatever she wants, because she already knows the dang answer and she's just waiting on me to catch up. She's like, help me understand why you, and then she fills in the blank and I'm like, oh, right. So I tell everybody that joins the company, I'm like, hey, if Angela says, help me understand, you're already in the doghouse. Don't try to dig your way out. you're already there, you know. But it's her way of kind of this overarching concept that you're talking about, which is she could give me the fish. She could say, no, you screwed up here and do this. It was teaching me how to fish, right? So that when you talk about those brush fires and when you talk about lean or agile, one of the things I love about software development, right, is that you don't want to create firefighting in a company.
That's
Right?
right.
Where it's like all you do. Angela always says there's only time. Remember, we always come back to time because our whole company's ecosystem revolves around the value of your time. Paying bartenders properly, you know, we pay them $20 an hour plus all the gratuity plus the travel reimbursement, right? So we pay people proper for their. We don't pay them $2.33.
Right.
Like,
Which is
the
not a
restaurant world.
livable wage.
It's not at all. It's insulting, right? I get why from a business model standpoint. Fully understand that part, but it's like, look, we've always wanted it to be that way. But she always says, look, there's only time to do the important, meaning the strategic, or the urgent. And if you're constantly firefighting, right, because you, the leader, have to run in and squelch each of those little fires, then you're never going to get back to the strategic, the important part, which means sooner or later, you'll be the one that gets innovated out.
That's right. You're
else.
absolutely right. It's absolutely hilarious and ironic that you said that Angela asks you, so help me understand, because that's one of my pet phrases. Ask my daughter, ask my boyfriend, ask anybody who's ever worked with me. Probably Drew is saying right now, yeah, that's Kim. She always says, so help me understand. I'm curious, or I don't understand how we got from this point to this point. I'm missing something in the middle. Fill me in, you know, and it just gives people that opportunity. Like some are already shaking in their shoes because they're like, oh, geez, I know I left something out. But for the most part, it just gives people the opportunity to fill in the blanks so that if I don't understand, then someone else at the table might not either. And we maybe haven't considered a certain perspective that needs to be considered. So.
Totally.
Anyway, Tim and I, you and I have been just yakking up a storm. Kevin and Nick, like, you know, jump in here. What, you have something on Facebook? What's going on over there?
Yes. So Taisha Hunter has joined the conversation. She says, "Great day, Kim and Kevin. This has been a great series of interviews." And I just responded. But yes,
Taisha's amazing too. She's one of the folks I sit on her advisory, and she's changing the world one long-term care facility at a time based on the experiences that she has had with her parents as well. So, Kevin, anyway, jump in there.
I want to get Nick back involved. We've heard so little from you, sir.
He's a thoughtful man.
It's true. So I guess I could pick up with with what with COVID in our pivot, if you would like. So yeah, so we from the standpoint of the systems, the business changed completely, right? From, as Tim said, from delivering a bunch of things to one place over and over again to delivering simultaneously to a whole bunch of different places. And the product set changed, and so it was very challenging to have hit us in the middle of an ERP project where we had built most of the things that that were affected.
Whoops.
You're going to have to explain ERP, because ERP is a term that, you know, the general populace might not know.
Oh yeah, so enterprise resource planning. So what we were doing ultimately in the tech project was everything from accounting through to project operations and inventory, out to eventually sales quoting and even CRM. And putting all that together means that, of course, the system has to know how you get from we quoted this or we sold this on our website to, oh, we have to pack this many of these and that many of those, and we have to mix these mixers or those cocktails, right? So it's a very interesting pivot, but thankfully we had at least approached things right. We had built a flexible enough system that we could do it. So we see it. So it worked out, but boy, it was kind of a remarkable.
It was a long 72 hours.
So okay, 72. Wait. What is the 72 hours? You did all of this in 72 hours?
So one of our biggest projects of the year is South by Southwest, which is the tech, film, music festival in Austin, and we've been partnered for years with South by. and Hugh Forrest, who's the chief programming officer and one of the founding members, called. And I've been talking to him daily, coming in early March. No, we're good. We're going to do it. No, we're good. We're going to do it. No, we're going to. For us, that means we're going to distribute 800,000 cocktails, right? In like that in about 4 or 5 days. And then he calls 2 days before it's supposed to start, and he's like, "Dude, the mayor in like an hour." And it's done. I'm like, what do you mean it's done? Like, we just prepared, to Nick's point, we built a whole ERP, which is logistics software, right? Like, the value of FedEx isn't the box. It's the fact that they can ship all kinds of different boxes, all kinds of places, and tell you exactly what the most efficient way is and where it is and how much it's going to cost and how much margin they're going to get. And they can do it over and over and over and over and over again. That's the value of a logistics company. And Nick had helped us build that for one city, one event, 800,000 cocktails. And all of a sudden it was like many other businesses in America and around the world. And so in literally 72 hours, we flipped the entire business. So we went from, we're doing South by 800,000 cocktails, to we built a new front-end e-commerce platform. We built a new supply chain. We made the ERP work with that supply chain. We built all new job descriptions for everybody in the company. Like, oh, you were a mass festival salesperson. There are not going to be any festivals for, I have no idea how long. So now you're a market manager, and here's what that means, right? We built a new pricing model. We built a new P&L, and literally 72 hours later, there was a lot of Red Bull involved, a lot of Red Bull. We came out the other side and we announced to the world of like, we're going to put America's bartenders back to work, and you can now have a proper cocktail delivered to your door. And we were just really, really fortunate that Forbes picked that article up on our first day, and there's been no looking back since, you know. But without the flexibility of the system, you can't actually flip, right? It was all new supply chain, right?
Right.
You don't need a half-mile long 6-foot wooden hand-built bars. You need that when you're going to serve 800,000 people in one location, right? When you're going to go serve tens of thousands of people in their home, you need a completely different inventory set, which is coming from all different vendors, right? At all different prices, right? And that's where it was like, all right. And the kind of my favorite part of the whole experience was what I call the vote. I'm really big on, it's a shared journey, right? Like, if you join, you're joining to be of service, but you're now an active member. And the way we express it is, if you have an opinion, our expectation is you're going to share it. And so we actually made everybody vote. So on March 15th, we sat down and we said, hey, we're in pretty good shape as a company. We've had a couple good years. We could just sit and hopefully ride this thing out to Willie Nelson's 4th of July festival. But there's a huge part of our audience, the bartenders, that aren't going to work. And if we don't have a job, they don't have a job, so they're not going to get paid. So do you want to try this pivot that's going to take an enormous amount of energy and a lot of frustration and a big risk in order to put them back to work? Or do you guys just want to sit and hopefully this thing blows over? And we went literally person by person on a Zoom, one by one, and every single person said, no, we want to put the last part of our labor force back to work, so figure it out. And that's when Nick and the management team and myself went, who's got the Red Bull? And got to work.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. So I'm just going to tell you guys, we have been at it for over an hour, which just absolutely shows you, what can be accomplished when there's passion around the table, right? When there's interest and passion, and when creativity is flowing, and when there's been a prick, how much it motivates you to move it forward. I'm going to tell you that you need to check out Woody's Bar in Tahoe. Go online and look at their menu, because the entire menu is the names of all of their cocktails are after Woody's. Pricks. And really it was because they built wooden boats next door. So that's where all the workers would come, and then they'd order cocktails. So they created cocktail of all of those prick names.
I love it. Everyone asked me about the history of the alcohol industry. And I said, you have to remember, those of us in the industry are responsible for recording it, and we're usually drinking when doing so. So So sorry.
I absolutely love it.
Well, thank
Oh my
you for
goodness.
having me. I really enjoyed visiting with you guys, and I love what you're doing. And it was a real honor for us to share how we've been pricked and how we've been very blessed to innovate around it with really smart people like Nick helping guide our ship.
Well, we absolutely appreciate the work that you've done, the culture you're creating, this experience, and being a shining example of, you know, being able to put yourself out there on the forefront and elevate the voices of the people who work for you, those experts that work for you, because that's the shift that we need across the globe, is the elimination of the hierarchical top-down leadership model to one where you're changing the face of leadership, where leadership is coming from the people who are doing the work. And so I applaud you and I appreciate you sharing. Thank you for sharing your prick story. Nick, too, he's got such a beautiful voice. He could be a DJ. We say that all the time. We absolutely loved having you guys on today, and continued success to you both. I can't thank you enough. Kevin, any parting words?
I echo Kim's words. Thank you both so much. This was a great journey. It was fun getting to know what your company is about. I actually went to the website and was pecking around looking at stuff. And so sorry you don't deliver to Napa yet.
Not yet. It's on the roadmap. It's on the roadmap.
We know a few people. We might be able to help you.
Nick and I'll get working on figuring out the geolocation.
Quite a cocktail culture here in Napa.
Yeah, we have a great cocktail culture, and we have some good distilleries around town too.
Absolutely.
So
It's one of my favorite things is that, you know, the alcohol industry creates a lot of jobs. You know, it creates a lot of jobs, and it creates a lot of jobs locally and nationally. And we're really fortunate to have found a new way to deliver the same great craft cocktail.
And it really was just cool to be a part of helping, you know, particularly the continuity of bartender jobs and Source culture was remarkable to be a part of through that.
I love it. I love it. Well, I can't wait to sit and have a drink with all of you. So, you know, virtual cheers to you, and I'm sure we're going to chat soon.
All right, y'all have a good afternoon. Cheers.
Yeah,
you
thanks
too.
so much.
Thanks again. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.